Today we're going to be discussing our Unified Trust Center for Privacy, Security, Compliance, and Legal. We're going to kick off by discussing what is trust in 2024 and why do trust and legal centers matter, and then how to build trust with TrustArc Trust Center. So we're going to kick it off with the state of trust in 2024. And I'd venture to say that we are no longer in an era where trust is a given. Right? Customers are not quick to trust organizations, and we're in an era of misinformation, and companies have been in the news for deceptive practices. We may not get into like individual names, but being a customer is confusing, right? You may not fully understand how tech interconnects and then how some companies get your data when you don't necessarily have a relationship with them. And customers are looking for guidance. And I would say that regulatory developments have tried to keep up with that to provide a level of trust for customers. You can read the poll, but at the end of 2024, 75% of the world's population will have their personal data covered by modern privacy regulations. But what does that mean for companies and the companies that we work for? That means that there's a lot to manage and take care of with our policies and our disclosures and our contract templates and things, right? We're trying to keep up with the rapidly changing world. And how do those interplay with us? They interplay through enforcements, fines, things like that. We need not get into the specifics, but we have a couple there on the bottom. But those are things that we want to avoid, and while keeping the trust with our customers. And I would say being a privacy leader in this world is challenging. And as these regulations and different things have continued to evolve, keeping up with all of those while trying to maintain reputational and legal risk, while building our robust privacy programs and keeping the wheels on the bus with our vendor risk assessments, it's just a lot. It's a lot nowadays. And I can say this because I've been in your seat very recently. So I've only been with TrustArc about 3 months. And also our general counsel, Val Lachenko, he's been with TrustArc for less than a year. But prior to our time with TrustArc, both of us were customers of TrustArc in our respective organizations. So I can confidently say that I have sat in this seat and that I know the challenges that you all are facing when you're trying to, build and maintain your customer trust. And we tried to bring that perspective to TrustArc when we came here and finding solutions and things that we would have liked had we had them when we were, with TrustArc previously. And one of the things that we thought of was having something like a centralized location where we could house all of these different policies and procedures and templates in one area that we could quickly evolve with and change with the rapidly different changing requirements that we were dealing with. And through this, our trust center was born. I would think that those on the call are very familiar with the things that are located within these bubbles, right? We have our terms of use, our DPAs, our cookie policies. Those things are housed with legal and our legal's responsibility. But we also have a number of bubbles like the SOC 2 report or your pen test report that there might be some interdependency with legal. Say you might want to share those behind an NDA, but are typically housed in something like InfoSec or security. And it can be challenging to kind of like herd the cats and keep them all and try to keep tabs on everything. So what Val and I were looking for and we thought of was having a place, yes, to house them all in one area, but also to be able to keep tabs on things that may not necessarily be housed within the legal department. So we have, we wanted a place where we could put our publicly facing documents like those that I mentioned, but then also have a place where customers could request private documents like your SOC 2 report or your pen test report that you might want to be able to put behind an NDA. And I can speak very specifically to this during my tenure at an ed tech company where it was a B2B company. We had constant requests for SOC 2 reports, and those requests would go to security, right? Security would get the request. They'd be like, hey, we have a customer that wants a copy of our SOC 2 report. I need an NDA. Legal would handle the NDA negotiation. We'd go through the battle of the forums and the negotiation. And finally, when it was sent to signature, legal would know that. And they were required to then go back to security and say, hey, NDA is in place. Feel free to go there. But there's a lot of time and a lot of errors, like opportunities for error or, missed opportunities within that process. We thought, wouldn't it be best if you could just have one place where somebody could go in, request it, legal would be responsible for the NDA, and be like, bam, there you go. There's your SOC 2 report. So through this, as I said, Trust Center was put together as a way to hopefully make that simpler. So when we were trying to build Trust Center, we sat down and we tried to get a realistic gauge on what we thought it would take if a company were to build a site that's similar in-house. And we looked at the time it would take, the resources it would take, the bodies, and we tried to give a realistic representation of what we thought that might look like. We've got weeks 1 through 3, we have scoping and stakeholder identification and, all the interdependencies that are there with privacy, security, GRC. I'll let you all read the slides. I don't need to go into each one of them, but it takes time. The long thing is it takes time. We estimated it would take 6 months. And I think that's being pretty conservative in that all of these interdependencies would be solely focused on prioritizing the building of a microsite to house all of your different documents, right? And we all know that there are different things that come into play that, there might be other things that might be prioritized or take your time and attention away from it, and that would cause the process to be delayed. But this is only to build a microsite. I think that a personal anecdote that I can share is that, what happens as those regulations are evolving or as you all need to make adjustments to different documents, what does that timeline look like by comparison? This ultimately would save you time in the long run. But for instance, when I was at a fintech company, I had my CEO and business come to me and said, hey, Kathleen, we want to share data with third-party non-affiliates. How do we do that? Does our privacy policy allow for it? And I said, no, it doesn't. We can do it, but we need to update our privacy policy and our GLBA disclosure for those not in the fintech space. It's a financial specific document that would go into the mortgage flow. I worked for a mortgage loan originator, so it would have to be put into the product in the doc flow. And it was relatively easy for me to make that update, right? It took me about a day to modify the language so that we would be able to do that. But then I was ready to go. And I went to my liaison between the legal team and the engineering and web marketing team. And I said, hey, we need to get these live because as soon as they go live, we need to wait 30 days for our borrowers to have the ability to opt out of that data sharing. We have to provide notification and give the 30 days for them to do that. Okay, no problem. She said, Kathleen, I can't get you into this sprint. I might be able to get you into the next sprint, but we can definitely get you in by the 3rd sprint. Now, each sprint was 2 weeks long. So already, think about it. It would be 30 days from the time the document went live. Each sprint's 2 weeks long. They might be able to get me in within a month, but they certainly could get me in within a month and a half. And then the clock starts for 30 days. So that would be 2.5 months for our privacy policy to, for us to be able to share data with third-party non-affiliates. And I can tell you, and maybe this is something where you all are, you understand and you've sat in my seat. When I brought that back to business didn't hear logistically, we can't meet this requirement for a month and a half. And they knew that I couldn't change the regulation. But it was like, legal's the blocker. Legal's going to take 2.5 months before we can do what we want to do and get business rolling, right? That was a tough pill to swallow. And no matter how much I said, hey, no, it's not me, they didn't hear that. So I wish that I would have been able to quickly modify that document by myself in something like a Trust Center that would have been housed by me, and I could be agile and quick and make that update as needed, but it didn't exist. And so I would have loved to have that. But I think that story also highlights the number of interdependencies that are required to build something like this, right? We have, business, we have legal, we have compliance, we had the liaison, we had engineering, we had web marketing, all of these things. And I think with this slide, you can see not only it would take time to build the Trust Center, but also requires the interdependency of a lot of different teams and a lot of different people. And what I highlighted was just one policy. It was one change to one policy. Mind you, we talked about 75% of the world population being covered by different privacy regulations, right? That's a lot of different policies to update consistently. So, As the world ever changes and ever evolves, it really highlights the need for us to be agile and to be able to have more control over the process of getting policies live and in a compliant fashion as quickly as possible. So you can see they kind of look like paw prints. They're meant to be people. But as I said, we're trying to highlight the teams between privacy, marketing, legal, security, IT, web, and what it would look like again if somebody were to solely be focused on the building of a microsite or a trust center within their own organization.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Kathleen. And the thing about all of this, right, is that all the pieces are there, but bringing it together results in challenges, right, that you've highlighted here. In fact, as you were talking, I went and I found this picture of you. I think this is a photo of you I found. But on behalf of privacy professionals everywhere, this is what we heard, and as we were thinking about the concept of Trust Center, was how do you take the Kathleen's and hearing her stories and understanding the reality behind those stories, right? Where it sounds like Kathleen's tired, right, of the logistics required to update a policy, right? We've seen it everywhere. We've heard it. You heard she was able to craft this in a day, but it was going to be 90 days before she was able to do anything with that work. And I'm going to guess she had moved on from that project 90 days later, which requires a revisit, a refocus, a re-engagement, if she was even able to step aside from that project at all. Which kind of leads into the second thing, where privacy professionals, legal professionals, they just don't have the time, right? Kathleen, are all working day in and day out, and you don't have the time to put together a project plan, right? To advocate or lead, and let alone project manage getting a policy updated, right? It just seems like a real pain that we thought we could maybe help out with. And then certainly leaning into all this, just being overwhelmed. And I think, Kathleen, you mentioned the word bottleneck. Nobody wants to be a bottleneck. Legal, bless you, often can become a bottleneck, and not out of any error of your own, just the matter of volume of not only keeping things current, but helping drive sales. And I think this is an interesting one that we were talking about as we were bringing this to life, is how do we not only use trust as a way for our customers to showcase transparency, give legal and privacy teams the power and control to own the content that they're creating, but also accelerate business by getting out of the way when possible. So the ability to have customers or vendors or RFP requests that come in, and having a single place for that to go that maybe isn't just a person, that can maybe offload 10% or 20% or 50%. All of it helps, and it provides consistency on how someone could do work with your business. So, these, I believe, resonate with Kathleen, and also, certainly many of the customers we've talked to said, yeah, these are a lot of the problems that we have. So I get the opportunity to share with you today what we've been working on and how we're going to help change the dynamic of this whole world, and give Kathleen back some time in her day, the control she needs, and also let her maybe go to lunch one day, maybe, not sure. So we're introducing a brand new concept and a brand new product in our suite called Trust Center. And really the 4 key tenets of Trust Center that we believe were really important was, we want you to be able to build customer trust in days, not months. There's often a timer on a lot of these things. We know timing is everything, especially when fines and when regulations are coming up. We want to give you control to deliver that trust that your customers expect, with the transparency that your company requires in order to stay compliant. We also want to give you an opportunity to unify that scattered bubble sheet that Kathleen walked through. There's a lot of documents. If a document is created in the woods and no one is around to hear it being created, does it even exist? We have a lot of content that exists in our world today, but if you aren't making it available, or it's difficult for your users to find, or they have to ask someone where to find that document, these things are time sucks. They demand the time of people because they are time sensitive. but they also require time to go find the right people and the right location and the right place. So let's bring it into one place for not only your users, but maybe even your team to know exactly where to go to find information around your privacy, your legal, your availability, and your security docs. We also wanted to deliver with Trust Center a brand new way to reduce legal and regulatory risk. So this risk, as we've heard, comes in the forms of out-of-date policies, fines because a company could have $400,000 in fines that came about because a company didn't get their policy around AI updated in time. The ability to make sure your terms are on your terms and maybe not at the web team's terms. And then also being able to update those disclosures. So oftentimes in a world of sub-processors and where's my data going and who is seeing my data, the updating of sub-processors is a critical part. And that's kind of tricky, right? Especially if you don't know where to get the sub-processor information. And then, gosh, now that I've got it, how do I show this? What do I need to show here? I need to do it 30 days before we turn it on. So back to that timing issue. There's a lot of things here that, you probably you wish you didn't need to deal with, but it exists. It's a reality. And we want to make sure that that's as seamless as possible and gives the control right back to the team who needs control over that. And then certainly last but not least, the idea of speeding up that sales cycle with private and public document sharing. So your key constituents can either download the information they need right from a Trust Center, or they can request access to documents that you might not want to be made available publicly, but you'd like them to be able to say, just put in an email address, enter the information about why they're looking for this requirements. Then someone can easily approve this and then they get a link to download it, not a process that involves multiple people and sending multiple emails. So those are some of the key tenets of Trust Center. And the fifth thing that we wanted to make sure of was that this would be appropriate and acceptable and really something that the marketing team would be proud of to put on your website. So as part of this, it's a beautifully designed experience that looks a little something like this. So this is a look at Trust Center. And this is a simple way that you can easily update graphics. You can easily update brand colors. You can personalize the navigation. All the text is personalizable. But what you don't have to know going into this is what goes into building a Trust Center, right? That timeline that Kathleen walked through about scoping and planning and prioritization and making sure that the tactical pieces of delivering a web project are in place, it all goes away. And the team that's focused on the content can focus on the content and publish it directly into Trust Center. So the idea here is deliver a product that everyone is very proud of while providing the right control to the right teams who control the content itself. So introducing Trust Center by TrustArc. This is really a unified no-code Trust Center. So you don't have to be a coder in order to create a beautiful Trust Center for your company. This is really identified to streamline efforts and give the control right back into the team who just wants to publish things and who know the content that needs to be there. In looking at some of the project plans for this, as Kathleen mentioned, we did a ton of research around this engagement. And with Trust Center, you can eliminate 2 to 6 weeks delays on just updating policies. Something as simple as a typo can lead to a 6-week delay. We've seen it. It hurts. You hate to hear it, but it's real. And so let's not make a typo take up 6 weeks of our brains. Save time and cost. We talked about bottlenecks and creating efficiencies here. With Trust Center, we've estimated that you can save up to 34% of your privacy, legal, security, and compliance team's times by introducing Trust Center and getting them out of the business of project management. It's one of those things that soft cost is so expensive that their time is way better spent not project managing, but just doing. And then, if you even just get down into hard dollar costs, just from the pure play web development part of this, not the content creation, not the planning, not the meetings, just the pure play web development, we estimate there's a $15,000 to $30,000 hard cost savings here on just getting up and getting started. So the other thing that's obviously expensive is time, and we are all shy of the time we wish we had. And that goes back to that private document sharing. We want to make sure that the right documents get into the right teams at the right time. So whether you have a SOC report or whether you have a pen test, those can live in the right place. You can publish them. It takes the question out of the question, do you have this? And it makes the question, would you like me to have access to this so I can move forward? If your answer is yes, it happens automatically. And then we want to help you reduce that legal and regulatory risk, back to that reducing noncompliance and avoiding those fines that we're also well aware of that exist in our space. And also we want to give you the trust to provide the trust to your customers in order to not achieve the having to think about these fines in the future. So in order to build a modern trust center in a no-code way, we really took a serious look at how do we enable the right team members to build this a modern trust center, but with a modern experience. So if you're a customer today of any of our TrustArc products, one of the great things is this is going to be built right into your TrustArc experience. So this is a brand new product that just lives right alongside in your navigation. So your team that already knows how to use TrustArc can come in and easily access Trust Center here right from the navigation. You'll notice here in this little screenshot here in the middle of my no-code admin view, it's actually called Trust Centers. And one of the things that we haven't really talked about today are companies with multiple brands and companies that have the need to have more than one trust center. Well, Trust Center fully supports the deployment of multiple trust centers across your brands, fully personalizable. And one thing that we sought after when building this, and we heard directly from you, was some of our policies are the same, except for maybe a couple sections. And so maybe 80% of that policy is the same, but perhaps in a certain region, we need to add some other sections. Within the policy builder inside Trust Center, you can easily start off with those building blocks and then just create your policies from them. So when you update one, it's going to update all of your trust centers and it makes maintenance a breeze. So our goal here was to help you go live in days and make updates in minutes. We're not even going to say the word months, let alone years, in trying to establish trust. We want to make sure that you're able to deliver this on your timeline. This is fully optimized for mobile and web. So if anyone visits your website and they go to your trust center, it's going to look great on the device that they are looking at. We're also going to provide those default formats. Like I said, I can't see show of hands here, but in a show of hands, how many of you know exactly the right columns and the right information for showing a sub-processor disclosure? The answer is you probably have a pretty good idea, but that cast of characters that were looking down that list that required all of that collaboration to pull it off probably don't. And you probably have to explain it or talk about it or discuss it or meet about it or look at prototypes. We've taken a lot of that away just by giving you a standard template that's going to look great and you're going to be able to get the information out and published and of course be on brand. Speaking of the on brand, you can customize content and visuals. So in a couple of the screenshots here, you can see we're providing previews of exactly what you're going to be updating. So you can update with confidence. You can, of course, update your logo. That's going to show on the site. You can change virtually all of the text. And you're also able to go in and add things like your badges and your security posture. So if you're GDPR compliant or your CCPA, or maybe you just got that responsible AI cert from TrustArc, your trustee badge. Hopefully you all have that. It's really important. AI is a big deal. You can show that off here right in your Trust Center. So not only are you showcasing the content, but you're also being able to put together your compliance brag sheet to make sure that when a customer visits your site, they know all the work that you've gone through in order to achieve those certifications. And then back to the idea of simplifying policy and legal management. We have some version history in here, so when new policies are updated. We're able to draft and preview content. So we know that collaboration doesn't go away, but perhaps a faster engagement is not Kathleen saying, I have some content. Hey, when can I meet with the web team to pull this off? But what if Kathleen were able to make those updates, share a preview link with the team and say, any comments? If not, I'm going to be publishing this in 48 hours. It's a different conversation. It's something to react to, not get permission or get on a project plan to do. That is made possible by those pre-built templates. And then also time is of the essence in our world. And we want to make sure that that control is back in your hands. So just some of the other little highlight features here that I wanted to bring up today, the ability again to showcase your organizational commitment to trust and safety is brought to life in these badges. It's an important part, and we're putting them both on the privacy and security sections so you can easily publish all of those certs. We're also going to give you the ability to customize the icons that show there. So if you have perhaps a brand language that you like to use, maybe alongside of some of these standard badges, we're going to give you the control to be able to update those visuals to make sure that fits within your brand voice. One thing that kind of in the bottom left that I'd like to bring some attention to is what is trust in 2024? We touched on it earlier. There's an interesting part where transparency is a storyline here for all of us. And one of those pieces of transparency that I think pretty much every company has been asked for is talk to me about your product availability. So that word can mean many things, but the availability in this context is, what's my status page, right? What is the status of my applications? And probably everyone on this call has some sort of status page that they're able to produce, and it's probably out there in a link somewhere. Well, we want to bring that right into Trust Center. So we're not going to ask you to go rebuild the status page, or we don't have a status page product here, but we believe it's part of the trust experience. So we've introduced a way for you to easily say, these are the links to the status availability of all of our products and all of our services. So then it eliminates the question of where do I find it? And am I within SLA? So a simple shortcut to all of those great statuses that you put a lot of work into putting out there. Let's make it available in the right place in a single spot. The efficient document sharing, you can see here is an example in the bottom right of what that experience looks like. So it's easy to publish right there into the public and private views. A user can come in, they can select one or more documents, and all they have to do is say, I'd like to request access to those private documents. Again, they just provide a little explanation, they provide their email address, and that can go right to your team for review and approval, or thanks but no thanks, you're a competitor, you just want our information. So you get the control of that information right here inside the application. And then real-time updates to users. So one of the harder things to do is communicate these updates as part of your process here. And so we've introduced a brand new subscription model as part of the Trust Center experience. And by subscription model, I don't mean your customers have to subscribe to a model, but they can subscribe to your trust updates. So at any point in time, they can come in and we have a new update section. So if you go in and add updates, a user can subscribe to that. And that way they're automatically going to receive the updates that they want on their terms, but you're just publishing into a single place. So if anyone's ever asked for, hey, can you send me this? Or when did you update your policies last? Or you need to let me know every week when something changes. It's really easy to do. You just say, go look at our Trust Center, find the subscribe button, and now you're going to be up to date as soon as anything happens in our environment. And last but not least, as part of our Trust Center experience, we want to take a user-centric approach, and those users being your customers that are visiting the site. And one of the things that customers do is make privacy requests. And oftentimes, if you look at a site today, they're kind of scattered all over. That word scattered kept coming up as we were talking about this project. And that scatteredness leads people to maybe not feel like they have the ability to make those privacy requests from your organization that they feel that they have the right to do and need to be able to find easily. So the ability here for you to now unify that experience for all of your users is available in our privacy requests button. So this is native, it's right at the top of the application. And if you have any TrustArc products from our suite, such as our Cookie Consent Manager, if you have our Consent and Preferences Manager for managing those marketing communications, or even our Individual Rights Manager product that helps you manage those DSAR requests, sometimes you might have these products, you might have other products, right, that are helping you do this, but they're difficult to find. And so we're going to make that really easy for you to just add those into this list for your customers. So this is fully configurable, and you can link directly to these products to enhance your investment in those areas and drive your users to the outcomes that they're looking for in a much more consistent way, hopefully without having to answer questions from a support team saying, hey, where do I find my DSAR request form? So a simple way for your users to have a great experience in experiencing privacy within your organization. So those are some of the key features of Trust Center. We believe that it's really all about balance as part of this. And we think simplicity is key as part of managing Trust Center. So we want to help you reduce your risk exposure with Trust Center by reducing those legal and regulatory actions in the form of fines and non-compliance and those contractual commitments that you have to keep things current. We want to reduce the amount of money that you spend thinking about this. We want to make this an easy to digest with a ton of value product that it's going to pay dividends by the time and money saved by going this about it a different way. We also want to take the work out of it. Those cross streams, let's free up all those teams' time and let Kathleen do what she does best with the checkpoint with those teams when it's appropriate. And then also time. Again, the most precious resource, we want to cut down the time that we all spend on managing this information. And then at the same time, we want to increase our customer trust. So this is one of those win-win situations that I think makes me really excited about this product. That's why I dressed up like it, is the ability that you can get real-time updates. Right? Your customers can get informed when they need to be informed, or really when they want to be informed about your updates. It helps you work efficiently, it increases transparency, so your customers trust you, and they give you and they respect that trust within your brand. And also just accountability. It's hard when Kathleen says, it's not me. She's not making excuses. That's a true sentence, but it still has to get done, right? And so the accountability, getting out of the bottleneck world and being able to deliver on the things she needs to get done is really important. And we believe that we want to put the power into the hands of that team. So accountability is easy, and the ability to showcase this with your customers is really important. And the sneaky part about Trust Center that I always think is kind of the thing you might not be thinking about right away, but you might be thinking about Trust Center as this could really help my team out. And that's something that is super important, right? We want to free up our most valuable resources. But at the same time, if we're going to choose something, it should be a business accelerator. And from a product perspective, this is that kind of third leg of the stool that I think is really critical as you're thinking about embarking on this. Is customers who trust your business buy from you. And 9 out of 10 people say they would buy from a company that gained their trust. 43% of customers say a positive privacy experience can increase the brand preference. And 72% of respondents say that knowing a company's AI policy is important before making a purchase. If you have an AI policy and you don't have an easy place to put it, or it's lost in a land of policies that's 6 miles long, is that being transparent? And are you gaining the trust of the customers that you're looking to convey your responsibility to them in an easy way to make sure that they want to do business with you? So with that, we believe trust is a business accelerator. We're really excited about Trust Center. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you can tell this is something that we care about a lot. We're really excited to get this out there. We think it's going to be a great experience for your teams to help get back in the driver's seat of privacy in your organizations while still respecting your brand voice and really putting the power right in the right places within the organization while speeding everything up. So I didn't have anything else today, but I would just like to say thank you. Thanks for joining us. If you are interested, we'd love to connect with you. Please reach out to your account manager. We'd love to share more about Trust Center and see how we could bring it to your organization today.
Absolutely.
All right, Kathleen.
All right.
Thanks,
Ian,
everybody.
thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
thanks. Have a great rest of your
Bye.
week. Take care.